Good morning. It's Raven. This is December 28th, and it's Thanksgiving here in America. And we are going to do a Thanksgiving spread. A little different though. I thought about ancestors. When I thought about Thanksgiving, we're talking about the past. We're talking about our indigenous ancestors, if we have them here, and our colonizing ancestors. um, and, you know, I'm writing about Faerie, and this just brought me to Faerie. So this is going to be a little different than most. I'm using oracle cards. I'm not using tarot. Special holiday edition. And I'm doing it on a little more of an esoteric subject. Been doing it kind of general subjects, but we're going to go straight to fairyland this time. I have a long, complicated, and beautiful, to me, relationship with the Fae and the good folk. And these are the ultimate ancestors to me. These are the ultimate indigenous to me. The people, the inhabitants, the original inhabitants of the land is basically what indigenous means. And this is bypassing all of these sticky and heartbreaking politics, of course, but landing in the deep and distant past. That was how I interpreted, like how I landed into fairyland and wanting to do a reading on this. So just a little bit, when I say fairy and when I say the fae, the good folk, you know, this is basically all of the small nature connected and underworld individual and race of entities. They live in the energetic world to us, maybe a parallel world. They are intimately connected to place, and they're intimately connected to people. I don't know why, if that's just because of proximity, but if you do believe in various layers of reality, I believe that the fairy realm is just sort of the closest to us. And I have the idea in my mind as well that they used to be more present, and that's what a lot of legend and lore tells us in this particular three-dimensional reality, and that they have faded or, you know, just retreated from that. So the stone that we're using is a faery-cross. These are indigenous to Russia, and this is truly a stone. This is not a crystal. It doesn't have a crystalline structure. A crystalline structure is perfectly symmetrical, atomic, kind of almost like little clocks. That's why they are used in clocks. They conduct energy remarkably. Both metaphysically and physically. And this is a stone, but it grows in this formation with this amazing cross on it. And these are said to be portals. They're also said to be protectors from the fairy realm. It's a complicated relationship. And yeah, I've had this on my altar with the Fae for some time. Took it off with some trepidation today, but I really felt called to find out what else I could ask on this special day to us with these oracle cards. So we're using oracle cards. It just felt more appropriate for this this kind of topic. So just meditating with this stone, what I found was, first of all, not being a crystal, it did not enter my body and interact with me in the same ways as usual. But I could feel the energy of the stone in and of itself. And I'm going to say the energy of fairy. And it was whopping, galloping, Also more subtle, more distant. I felt was like, this is far away. This energy coming through here, even though I think of fairy as being pretty close because I've had so many close encounters, I feel like, in actuality, this is far, far from our readily perceived world, from the non-subtle reality that we live in, the gross reality, if you will. And the other thing I felt was just like this really strong, rhythmic, almost drum-like galloping energy. And I just got a real sense of how much power is beyond that veil. How much energy is beyond that veil. Amazing. So that's the faery-cross. If you should ever choose to work with this, that's my experience with it. And it does feel like a portal stone, but not in quite the invitational way that a lot of the other portal crystals are. So in asking this stone and the Fae, like, what can you show me about yourselves that I can share forth, with love, with gratitude, whatever you want to share. Oh, I think I started with this. So the first one I got was the owl. This is the Shaman Oracle. The owl, well, first of all, this is a night creature. This is a creature of the night, and that is absolutely true when it comes to fairy. We're talking about underworld creatures as light and gardeny and domesticated as the Victorian variety are, the garden variety I like to call them, that we have in our popular consciousness. These are essentially underground, underworld earth creatures. And the owl comes from the night. This is just like the deep yin. And the owl is also a messenger. So what this told me about fairy is that that there's an element available there when fairy is close, or when we choose to interact with it. There's a message in there for us. There's something about our relationship with them that is sort of message from spirit. So the other thing about owl is that the medicine of owl is sort of like a guardian, and a guardian against self-deception, a guardian against sort of like the shadow side of the self, really. And that's another thing about fairy that I know to be true, is that, a lot of people think of them as being very tricky, as being sort of backfiery. And the thing about that is that it's the humans that are tricky. The fae are extremely married to the truth, extremely close to total honesty and honor. And so when things backfire, it's because the honesty and the honor isn't there, and then that everything just kind of goes sideways. And owl is underlining that. And the owl medicine is that. It's a guardian against our own sort of ability to fall into illusion. So owl reveals the truth and is a denizen of the night and is a messenger. Same, the Fae. So the next one is the Time Master. Excuse me. Look at this amazing shamanic dude. He has a infinity symbol in his chest. This is clearly an astral traveler, and I think that's sort of the significance of this card. And it's also a reminder that our experience of time is, first of all, super subjective. We all know that a minute can seem like an hour, and an hour can seem like a minute. And that's not because it's a trick of our minds. That is actually inside the nature of time. The human experience also nowadays experiences time in a very linear fashion. But that is only one facet of time. Time is also cyclical. Time is also jumps from place to place. And so this was sort of a lesson for me, thinking of ancestors in the American landscape, and also the deep, deep ancestors of the Fae, and all of that is a really sort of subjective, modern human way of looking at it. You know, the Fae may be far away and long ago in some sense, but that's just from my perspective. In fact, like the way that they are experiencing time, which is, of course, one of these central myths, one of the central pieces of information we get through mythology about the Fae, is that you go into their era and you come out 2 days later and you turn to ashes, because actually it's 15 years or 500 years. You know, there is a huge lapse and difference in the way that time is experienced and behaves in fairyland, we'll call it, and for us on this dimension, with these humans, and with these human brains and human bodies and human rhythms. This is a different rhythm. So in interacting with the Fae, first of all, it tells us that the only way to do it is to kind of tap into time and be extremely present. If you're ever going to, quote unquote, see a fairy, it's from waiting patiently, being extremely present. So there's a key in terms of being available to fairy, and also a key in understanding how different our worlds are, and how a bridge can be built. The Fae live outside of time as we know it, and that time flows in all directions as we know it as well. And to begin to be a time master in that is to begin to be an accomplished magic maker, an accomplished witch, an accomplished spiritual adventurer. And that might lead you into fairyland. Yes, my favorite subject. So happy to do this today. Okay, so the third one is the rainbow. The rainbow. This is like some kind of parrot or something flying across the sun. The rainbow, the first thing I think of with this card is the rainbow body, which is a way of thinking of the energy body from the Tibetan tradition and the chakra system that is all in this modern metaphysical world, roots in India. So sorry, my voice again. But the rainbow, so this is really an indication of another sort of like pointer to the bridge between our world and the fairy world, which is the energy body. I feel like this is just pointing to astral travel again in another way. And another thing about the Fae is, you know, they're the good folk. They can be so exceedingly sweet and bright and good-natured and hilarious and childlike. And all of that is very much all of the sort of things associated with rainbow as well. Just the lovely kind of spark of brightness you get when you see a rainbow in the sky and you go, ah, a rainbow. Rainbows are circles. Rainbows are a sign as well, another message, and the message is sort of like the light at the end of the storm, the light at the end of the tunnel, brightness and good fortune coming kind of thing. So these are sweet, positive messages, and I believe that the Fae can be sweet, positive messengers. And that the rainbow body, the energy body, and kind of taking the darker, denser energy of the self and gradually transmuting it over time to be in this brighter, lighter vibration, paradoxically will get you into the darkness and into the shadow where they live. And they may live in the shadow, but they are not dense. They're extremely light. It's an interesting paradox to think of. And it just brings me back to this dense stone, this non-crystal that we keep in our crystal cabinets, because it has the ability to sort of like open into a much lighter dimension. So that's my experience and what I'm getting today from the faery-cross. Looking at deep ancestors today and immediate ancestors as well, and human ancestors, also just a real reminder that the travesties and the gifts as well of the last few hundred or thousand years are also, it's an illusion that those are in the past and non-connected to us. Time is an absolute infinity sign. Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, and happy Thanksgiving from the Fae. All right, blessed be.